Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Horror Thoughts. This is Sean, joined as always by Scott. Today we're going to be doing, I guess, a bit of a game, but before we get to that, I wanted to shout out Beyond a Legend. They are a local company that makes coffee and they sell it locally, but they're also big horror fans and they listen to our podcast and they have their own podcast also called Beyond Legend where they talk about mythology, urban legend, folklore. Their names are Andrew and Jasmine, and Andrew 3D printed these cool coins. There's a Michael one, Pennywise, and Jason. Just wanted to shout them out because I thought that was cool. So, the topic that we're going to do today is something that's kind of inspired by what went down with Justice League to very much condense it. Zack Snyder directed Justice League, the superhero team up movie, but he suffered a family tragedy, and so he decided to leave the project during post production. Warner Brothers then brought in Joss Whedon to fix the movie. They had certain problems with it, and Whedon was given a limited amount of money and time to fix all of these problems that Warner Brothers had, and results were mixed. To be kind of nice, but it's not really the point. I just thought it would be an interesting exercise if a studio or whoever came to you and was like, "Here is this movie that is not working. What would you do with limited time and resources to kind of fix it?" And the thing that would make it an interesting challenge is that you can't just make a different movie. You can't just throw it in the garbage and be like, we're just not doing that. You have to find little ways to make the movie they made work. Because if you've seen the two versions of Justice League, now that we have Zack Snyder's version, they are at their just most bare bones the same movie. The details are different and there are definitely differences, but they are ostensibly the same movie. And so that's kind of the idea here. We each picked a movie in the Halloween series. I think our respective least favorites,
For sure.
to kind of see what we would do. Scott picked Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, as that is his least favorite. I went with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, as that is mine. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I don't
Okay.
have too many things because I don't think there's much to save this movie, to be honest. But just to give some, I guess, backdrop of why I don't like Halloween 5 is because
Mhm.
I thought Halloween 4 was phenomenal for a fall, especially coming off Season of the Witch and having to bring Michael back. I thought they did it very well, as good as I think you could do it. And so going into 5, you have such a good story with these characters that you've carried over, and they doing nothing with them. Their one character that's been through the whole franchise is now cracked up and scarier than Michael.
Hmm.
And the protagonist from the last movie, the one that you want to see continue forward, she's gone and the other one can't talk. Like it's
Hmm.
it's it's an insane movie. And so being tasked with the challenge of trying to edit this movie without rewriting it completely was kind of tough, but I got some notes. Just right out the gate, the opening credits would have been different. I thought it was Halloween is iconic for the opening of the music, the pumpkin. Just a horrible opening credit scene. That's all. That's my first note, and it's in bold letters. Was
Hmm.
change the opening credits. So I guess that really stuck with me. And I will say, I hadn't seen this movie in a while. And if you've ever had the unfortunate pleasure of using Vudu for a streaming service,
Hmm.
it will lag every few minutes, at least for me. So not only was I trying to watch Halloween 5, I'm watching Halloween 5 with it buffering every 3 minutes, which is just the absolute worst way to watch that movie. And I tried and I got halfway. I tried again the next day, got like three quarters. It was a struggle. So the opening credits were awful. And that ties into one of the dumbest ideas for the opening of a movie. And that is having him float down the river so cartoonishly that it's insane. He just hops in a river like it's like fucking Benny Hill. Like, I don't know what he's doing. He just hops the river and just starts floating and ending up with a dude for a year. That timeline jump, I would fix that immediately. There's no way I'm going to have the main villain of my movie just be comatose with a homeless dude for a year and nothing happens. Like, he's just the homeless guy's like, oh, whatever. There's just a guy here. I'll keep him on my bed for 1 year and not care. Go for it.
Sorry. Funnily enough, that is a reshoot. It originally opened the same kind of scenario where he washed ashore and then was taken in, but originally the person that took him in was a lot younger and I think kind of into like voodoo and like witchcraft and just a weirder, darker character. And that footage, I haven't seen it, but I think they just put it out for the first time on the recent Halloween 5 4K. But I guess Mustafa Akkad thought it was too dark or too weird, and so that's why it got changed to just an old man doing it. Cause
Yeah, like I don't even have like the voodoo thing at least gives a story arc to it, and especially what's coming in 6 and stuff, it would it would tie in well, and I might actually make might be a better idea than what I was just gonna entirely get rid of that scene. Like, I don't know why they have to do a year time gap and have him sitting like that. Like, it's nothing's changed in a year. Like, you could have just simply continued it and it would have been fine. Because I assure you, if their issue was like, oh, the continuity error because Jamie Lloyd's older, so we need it to be a year and we need to have this backstory of her at this doing her stuff. That is not even nearly the biggest issue with this film. I could have been okay with that and been like, it's just the next day. That would have been way easier to deal with than the shit that this movie offers.
Well, you can't really do the next day because the next day is November 1st.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm like the fact like that's my point.
It'd be better
like
if you just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, you cut to a year later and you just don't know. Like, he got out somehow, he's still alive and he's back.
Something like anything than having him sit comatose for a year is so dumb. Like, I don't know how they were like, oh, that's perfect. Let's not have any explanation for why this guy would just keep a random person in his shed for a year. It's crazy. So that would be gone completely. I touched on this a second ago, but Loomis, I would take Donald Pleasence and I would turn that dial back by about fucking 10 because he is on a different level in this movie. It is frightening. He's using her as like bait. Like, he's terrifying in this movie. So everything that I think that the Loomis character brought to the table, I think 5 just completely went way over the top and jumped the shark with him in this movie. I would tone him back so far. Very small note here. There would be no squeaky shoe cops. That would not exist. Those characters would not be a thing. I get the homage and stuff, which I found out through you. Would not keep that in the movie. This is a very small one, but when the Camaro crashes and explodes in that movie, the big car crash.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that because I love Camaros. That's a very small note, but I would never do that to a Camaro. I would have made that a fucking Challenger, crash that shit.
That's one of the better scenes of the movie, just in terms of like tension and suspense, like just the horn stopping.
Yeah,
I always thought that was a good little moment.
One of the best shots of the movie, but it was unfortunate that it had to happen in that car. And now I'm already mad at the movie at that point, where I'm like, what? Now I'm just mad that you wrecked the Camaro. And my biggest thing, and this will be the last one I touch on, but it's a very big one, and I think you're gonna have a lot of words for this one. I think you feel the same way. I don't know why they killed Rachel and left us It's Tina, right? That's her name.
Tina, yeah.
I don't. So I know Tina gets a lot of hate. Like people hate that character.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
have I don't have a hatred for her. I don't mind her. I think she's a decent character.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not get why they would get rid of the main protagonist, the one that you have already followed through with the other girl who can't speak, who is a mute. So you're going to get rid of the one tie to the other movie that we know and we love and we have there. And it's not a movie where like I almost ruined Scream 5 for people. It's not a movie where there's times in horror franchises where someone like Nancy and A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, like you have a legacy character that dies off, right? And you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a character that needed to die off. There was no character arc that you're like, she's hit her run. It's time for her to go and pass the torch.
Mm-hmm.
There was no torch to pass. She still had the torch. She's the only character that's tied into the last one, and she can speak. You got Donald Pleasance going batshit crazy. You got this other character. She can't say a word. So why would you get rid of the last tether to any semblance of this movie? And then put her in. And again, I don't have a hatred for this character. I watched some reviews online, and I did not realize the hatred that people have for Tina. Had no idea, because I was like, that's a fine character, typical, whatever. Yeah. No, she is hated. I had hated.
No, people despise that character.
Blew my mind. Because I was like, what? For me, I was like, she's just a typical run. She's nothing special. Like she's just a typical run of the mill character.
Ditzy girl.
You know? Yeah, like there was nothing to offer with her, and I don't know why they would do that. And when you think of, you go back to Nightmare on Elm Street, you look at oh my god, I just blanked on her character name. Patricia
it's either Kirsten or Kristen.
Kristen, right? Kristen, whatever. You saw that passing of the torch, and it carried over into its own thing, and she had her own. She had something about her that was different. She offered more to the table, and you'll see it in even just Final Girls and Nightmare, or not Nightmare on Street, Friday the 13th. You just they there's something different, and this one was the most cut, dry, cookie cutter character I've ever seen. That you offered nothing to make the audience invested. So I would not, I guess that would have been, I know we can't do huge changes, and most of my things are just removing things. Like I would tone Loomis down. I would get rid of the cops. I'd get rid of the whole opening scene, because you're saying like we can't fuck with the budget and shit, really. So I'd get rid of all that, and I would not have killed Rachel. And if I was going to, it would have been at the end. Like it wouldn't have been in that manner. It was just so pointless. Like it baffled me when I see it, and it's baffling to me trying to explain why they would get rid of that character with no fucks to give about who's going to follow her up. Just her random friend is Tina's fine as a back character, but I think Rachel should have went through this movie, and I think that would have added a lot to it. That would have been my biggest change if I could have edited something, and she wouldn't have went out like that.
Yeah, that happened because the director Dominique Othen-Girard felt that would just be a big shocking thing. A character you thought was a sure thing to survive would die so early, and that almost always backfires in these slasher sequels, because we've seen it a few times when they'll bring back a character only to sort of unceremoniously kill them off.
Yeah.
And it often is because the character is suddenly a lot dumber than they were last time.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to accept that they're just a moron now. Like there's a lot of like, Rachel spends what little screen time she has naked and in the shower, and like she hears a noise, and in 4 you see stuff like that, and she bolts. Like she does the smart thing, and then 5 she goes, "Oh, I'll go investigate."
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're an idiot.
That was Everything else is just like things I would remove because I don't think there's much you could do like just
Hmm.
in a little time to fix this movie. I think you'd be better off taking things away than adding. But I would add more time for her, or at least give her
Hmm.
a different death than that.
Sure.
Something symbolic that's gonna move the story along. Not now we got to deal with her friend. That would you say that she's the most hated uh final girl of all time? Because, or I guess you call her
Um,
final girl. She's
I mean, she
hated.
dies,
Yeah, like I
so
don't know.
she's not Final Girl.
I don't know what you'd call her. I guess just
She's
character.
certainly the most one of the most hated in the Halloween series. I don't know if she'd get more hate than the Busta Rhymes character. Tommy Doyle, new Tommy Doyle from Halloween Kills is certainly getting a lot of flack. So he's getting up there
Huh.
in terms of most hated Halloween characters. But yeah, Tina's definitely
She's
up
up there
there. Like people do not like Tina. I
because
don't know
it
about like all horror though.
at
Maybe.
least with Busta Rhymes. I'm not defending this. Don't skewer me in the comments. But I feel like some people can probably sit back and laugh at that stuff.
100%. I
With
can. He's the best part of that movie.
that's what I'm saying. Like some people enjoy it. With Tina, it's like you don't offer so bad it's good, and you don't offer good. It's just you're there. You
Yeah,
just
she's
exist.
cute. She's mildly charming. That's about it. There's
Yeah.
just nothing really to her.
That's what surprised me is for me, she's like you said, there's nothing to her. I'm like, ah, whatever. I didn't know people hated her. It's like I thought she was
And
just like an average
it's
character.
I think it's just one of those things where because she's a replacement for a
Uh,
character people really liked, that then you immediately like hate
that
the
makes
new
sense.
person because you're like, well, Rachel died for you. I think is
Yeah,
kind of what goes on there. And she's kind of like big and bubbly a little bit. So I think some people just find her annoying.
that's fair. Um, so to roll off of that movie right into yours, we're back to back. I will say before you get into it that this is a movie I'm not. I've seen it once. I'm not familiar with this movie very much. It's
Hmm.
obviously shows what I thought about it that I don't ever go back through watching them.
Yeah.
I skip 5 and 6. I
Hmm.
never watched them.
Yeah.
So I did not go back through and watch 6 for this. Unfortunately, you sat through 6, so
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear how you'd edit that movie.
So important to say, I went through the producer's cut, which is an original version of the movie that test screened and test screened very poorly. So it was a movie that went through a hefty amount of reshoots and rewriting and re-editing, resulting in the theatrical cut. I just decided, for the sake of the game, to go through the producer's cut since that was the original version. And I do agree with a lot of the issues the Weinsteins had with it, even though the resulting theatrical cut is also really, really bad. Um, it's a good place to start. Well, one little thing. So I have kind of like one little note and then two sort of big things, or not big, but like what I can do. The first thing is the music. The music is really off in this movie. I assume it's because this is an early cut and they didn't have the final score yet, but there's a lot of just poorly placed stuff where I don't think it's conducive to the mood and pace of the movie. And so you can never really get into the suspense or sort of the drive of what's going on because of that. As an example, in the very first scene, and I don't know if you remember this, but you know, Jamie has a baby in like the basement and the nurse helps her escape. So the nurse grabs her and they start to run, and then they cut to Michael. But you don't see Michael for a few minutes. It's all shadows and stuff. So you like cut to like you see like a cell bars and there's Michael's shadow as he is going to come chase them now. And they instantly go into the main theme, you know, the bump 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 bump, but they don't build up to it at all. It just starts. And it's not, I don't know, it just doesn't really work. Like I would wait to use that until Michael is fully revealed. Like once he actually like shows up on camera, and then use different, more, I think, simpler or more like mood setting kind of things as the buildup. But that's just sort of a small thing because I want the music sort of shifted around throughout the movie because none of it works.
So I would this would be a super niche thing, but I'm gonna make a video edit where You don't like the music? I'm just gonna put in "Rip and Destroy" from Phantom as the background music whenever the stuff starts
Oh
happening,
my god,
and I'll send it to you.
this is totally a non sequitur. I just saw a video on Reddit where someone decided to rescore and add in new special effects to one of the fight scenes from Kiss Meets Phantom of the Park.
Fantastic.
And they put in this like crazy epic music and changed the like swords to lightsabers. And it's
Jesus.
just it's really ridiculous and funny. And I hope the person that made it knows that it's really ridiculous and funny. Because if he was meant to make it like a serious thing, like woof, swing and a miss.
Yeah.
But I hope he's in on the joke because
Oh,
it's
I'm
very
sure.
funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you a producer's cut where it's only "Rip and Destroy" featured in those scenes.
Just constantly, just on a loop. It's like I can't hear the dialogue. But my next thing, one of the most controversial elements of this movie is how they handle Jamie. You talking about Rachel getting screwed over. Jamie gets screwed over in this movie. She gets kidnapped and held hostage by a cult, raped, has to give birth, and then is unceremoniously killed. It's worse in the producer's cut because Michael doesn't even kill her. He fails, and the Man in Black has to do it, which I just hate. And I hate the Man in Black, but there's nothing I can do about that character. But Danielle Harris did not come back because one, she didn't like the script, and two, they weren't really going to pay her anything. So JC Brandy comes in to play Jamie. I would edit the movie in a way where she's not Jamie. Like all references to her being Jamie Lloyd are out. This character is not Jamie. One, for sort of the fan reason, but also it doesn't make any sense in story for her to be Jamie because the whole thing is, they have this baby, Steven, and that's going to be Michael's final sacrifice because Michael, this whole dumb cult thing is Michael has to kill every blood relative, and Steven's going to be his last one to pass the curse onto the little boy, Danny, who is a Strode, because sure. And I just don't get it because why isn't Jamie the final sacrifice? I've never understood this. Why did you create another member of the family that Michael now has to kill? Like, it just feels like you're setting yourself up to fail there.
Yeah.
And also, Michael hasn't killed like 90% of his family in this version of the timeline. Just Judith. He has failed every other time.
That's a really good point.
Like, Lori died in the damn car accident. He didn't kill her. He didn't kill his parents. And then he doesn't even kill Jamie because, again, the Man in Black does it. So that whole thing doesn't make sense. So JC Brandy is not Jamie because that's why they need a baby. That's why Michael needs a baby because they don't know where Jamie is. We don't address it. She's disappeared. Loomis put her in a vault somewhere. I don't know. But Jamie's not here. So they can't use her as a final sacrifice. So they need this baby, Steven. So that's sort of the first change. The next thing, and I guess it's honestly the last thing, is changing the nature of Thorn, where I don't, as presented in the movie, Thorn has always been there. They've always been behind Michael. They're behind everything. That's a no from me. That's out. I would have them. They come into play in that year that we were talking about between 4 and 5. Like that old guy that you don't like, he's a member of Thorn now. Because that's the first time we see the tattoo, is the beginning of 5. His hand turns around and we see that tattoo. And so that's when Michael is sort of being controlled by Thorn. They tried to sort of take control of him to do their bidding at the start of Halloween 5. So they have nothing to do with the first 4 movies. Well, I guess 3 doesn't count, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then sort of the point of the movie would be that you can't control evil or damnation or whatever you want to say. And then I would sort of reshoot the ending because if you haven't seen the producer's cut, it's really lame, where there's this sort of like ritual sacrifice. Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, comes in and he saves the people that are going to be sacrificed, and they're running away. Michael's chasing him. Paul Rudd puts some rocks on the floor that are magic runes, and that's how Michael is stopped, which is super thrilling.
That is awful.
So I would have, as this cult sort of sacrifice is happening, I would just have Michael like just snap out of it somehow. I don't really know, but he would snap out and he would just go after the cult and just decimate them. And then somehow Smith's Grove, because that's where the cult is, that would get set on fire and our main characters would escape, and you would leave the fates of Michael and Dr. Loomis kind of ambiguous.
That's a 10,000% better ending, and it blows my mind that people who get paid to write things like, hey, you know what Paul Rudd needs to do? Throw these rocks on the ground.
Throws these rocks at Michael.
That'll work.
He just stops.
There's two people who do a podcast on Sundays that wrote a 10,000% better ending to a film than someone who gets paid to write films. It's crazy.
Yeah. Production of that film was wild. It was this close to having VR. Because Bob Weinstein was convinced that VR was super hip and needed to be in his Halloween movie. So a lot of the early concepts for Halloween 6 involve VR.
Wow. I did not know that. That is crazy.
I'm reading a book, or actually I just finished it, called Taking Shape 2. The first Taking Shape is about the making of each Halloween movies. Taking Shape 2 is about all the Halloween movies that didn't get made.
Oh my God.
And boy, is that a trip.
I couldn't imagine just doing the Freddy versus Jason scripts that didn't happen. I could only imagine what's happened with Halloween.
Oh, it's wild. I don't know if any scripts were written, but they tried real hard for Michael versus Pinhead. I don't think they ever got any scripts done, though. I don't think that ever went past the concept phase.
Shoot, what a bummer. We never got to see that.
Whoops.
Oh, what a miss.
Clive Barker and John Carpenter were interested. And that's like the one scenario where I've been like, oh, okay, what do they got?
I would see what they have to offer. I think no matter who you make in charge of it, it's still a shitty concept. So like it might be the best version of a shitty concept, I think is what it would be.
And like people wanted to see Freddy fight Jason. I don't think anybody was like, what would Michael do in a fight against Pinhead? I don't think anybody's ever thought that. Dimension just happened to own both. So they were like, well, these are the two guys we own. So
it sounds like two potheads were sitting in a room watching horror movies and they're like, you know what, dude, it'd be fucking crazy. It's a Pinhead. It's never even been a thought that crosses my mind.
Yeah, you would want to see Michael fight Jason or Freddy or like
the big three kind of thing. Yeah, not fucking Pinhead. Like that's insane. Like, dude, do you want to see fucking Freddy Krueger take on the Exorcist? I'm like, no, not at all. That makes no sense. Now I'm gonna make a fan film where it's fucking Freddy Krueger versus the Exorcist.
I think there's silly like fan films. Like one did like A Nightmare on Elmo Street, where like Freddy torments the Sesame Street characters.
Have you ever seen? I just when you think of it, the what do they call themselves? It's this country singer who dresses up like Leatherface, and he sings like he covers country songs.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the Merkins.
Is that their name, Merkins?
Because they do a boy band.
Yeah, they do. Well. They do NSYNC, and they do.
Yes.
I Want It That Way, but what was their version? It's like
I'll Kill You That Way.
I'll Kill You That Way, and then Leatherface, he does one where he's making fun of the I Got Friends in Low Places country song.
Friends with No Faces.
Yeah, I got friends and I wear their faces or something like that. If you guys haven't seen those videos, go look it up, man. Because if you love horror, it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard because the references are good and the production quality is phenomenal.
Yeah. The boy band is called the Slash Street Boys. That's what they call
the Slash Street Boys. That's what it was.
Their Ghostface ones are always my favorite.
That's so funny.
They always do a lot of really fun Ghostface ones. But you're right. The Leatherface country ones are hysterical.
Oh, man. I got friends and I wear their faces. That's so good. way more production value in that music video than Halloween 5 or 6. I feel like they were better produced.
I kind of like Halloween 5.
Oh, God,
Not in like an actual like way. It's just 4 and 5 were the first ones I saw and I grew up with them.
yeah,
So
like a
like I can't
nostalgia.
I can't really hate Halloween 5. But every time I watch it, I notice something new that I don't like. This is a huge
The whole
problem.
movie is something I
Every
don't like.
time. Every time I'm like, what is that?
Fuck that movie. Oh,
Well, I
jeez.
think that kind of covers the topic. Um, so I'm going to move on to news. I have a couple things. The first is that the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV show on Amazon Prime has been canceled after one season, which
Promising.
isn't a super shock because I literally don't know any single person that watched that.
No, I have no idea.
It didn't sound very good. It didn't look very good. And I don't think this is a property that people were like itching to come back. Like, who wanted this? But that's gone. That was a
After
failure.
the smash hit, I'll always know what you did last summer. I can't
Yeah.
believe people didn't want to see more.
Yeah. Big shock. Of course, the much bigger deal news is that Scream 5 is out and it's doing pretty well box office wise. It made about 30 million in the US opening weekend. Um, it actually did better in its second weekend than people were thinking. It was projected to have a pretty steep drop, but it actually held a little better. It still, I think, lost the top spot to Spider-Man, which
That
is
makes
kind of
sense.
funny. It opened number one, but then in its second week, Spider-Man came back in
That's
and
fair.
wrestled that spot back because that's just not a movie you can compete with.
Yeah, you're up against the wall there, dude.
But I think they've made worldwide about 70 million so far, maybe maybe closer to 60, which is certainly respectable. Budget was like 24 million, so they've made their money back. There's going to be more screams, but it's a pretty far cry from what the original trilogy made or even what these new Halloween movies are making.
Did
But it's
you
doing okay.
did you end up breaking's not the right word, but did you end up going and seeing it? Did you ever give in?
Nope.
No, I
I
wouldn't.
got this close because my mom, who's also a big fan of the Scream movies, she really wanted to go see it, and she was like, "Well, you guys like you're gonna come see it, right?" And I didn't know how to tell her that I had no desire to see it, and I didn't want to make her go by herself. But luckily, my dad took her,
Oh,
so
I went.
safe.
I saw it opening night. So one half of the Horror Thoughts podcast has seen the new Scream.
Do you want to give brief spoiler-free thoughts?
Spoiler free thoughts. So if you want super in-depth spoiler free or an extra spoiler review, I did cover them on my YouTube just for people listening. But a brief one, uh you're gonna get what you want. It's a Scream movie. Like rinse and repeat. It's a Scream. It's a who done it. They're not gonna throw some crazy let's have Ghostface sit with a homeless man for a year and be a part of a cult kind of bullshit going on. It's a slasher movie. It does the Scream style of referencing the hot things in horror and using that as the piece. You get a good mix of legacy characters with new characters. So my biggest contention was I feel like if you're a diehard Scream fan, like that's your shit. I don't know how you'd receive that movie, but just for a casual Scream guy, I think you're gonna get exactly what you expect. It's a Scream movie. For someone like you watching it, it might be awful. I don't know, but it has a lot of references to every film, a lot of little things that you, if you're a Scream fan and you see it, you're like, oh shit! Like that's a good little cameo they threw in there or whatever. So it has those elements to it, but also if you're seeing it for the first time, but like Sydney is the main, like just the backstory, you can catch up to the movie fine. So it's good for anyone who actually wants to see it, whether you're a Scream fan first time. Again, if you're the diehard, you might hate it. I don't know, but just for casual viewing, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's just a whodunit. So
yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I know most of the major plot points because one, this stuff leaked months ago.
I stayed away
Uh,
from it the best I could.
and once it was out, I just sort of looked to confirm what was true and what wasn't.
Yeah.
A lot of it, and I'm not going to say what it is, obviously, but a lot of it just sounds kind of dumb to me. And there was stuff that I was like, you're doing that. Um, but I don't know, maybe in context and in execution, maybe I'd end up being turned to it. I
I
will say
think
I'm
you
hearing lots of mixed things. Some people are really liking it, saying it's the best sequel or at least the best since two. Other people are saying it's the absolute worst.
see, I don't feel either of those. And like I did my spoiler alert to my own Scream ranking video for people who want to see it, but it's right in the middle. It's dead in the middle for how I feel. Like
But you're also weird in that you don't like Scream 2.
that
So you're kind of a
now
weird outlier.
you just spoiled my last place Scream movie. Scream 2. Yeah. I will say this, that's we're on Scream, and I touch on it in my ranking. I think Scream is the most consistent franchise out of every big horror franchise. That all of the films, none of them are egregious. Like you don't have
Mhm.
Scream Takes Manhattan or Scream Goes to Hell and whatever horrible. I love Friday the 13th and the amount of horrible entries that are in that franchise. Scream does none of that. Like even their worst movie, it's still better than a lot of stuff. And so I don't mind Scream 2, but compared to the rest, I think it's just the worst opening scene of all time to a movie, the dumbest opening scene to a movie. But yeah, I hate Scream 2. Compared to the rest, I hate Scream 2.
But another thing that you said, and part of the reason I never wanted another Scream is your point is about, oh, it's Scream. It's the exact thing you're expecting. That's not cool.
Yeah, rinse and repeat.
Scream, the original was innovative and original and fresh, and so just to kind of do the same old thing over and over and over again, I don't think that's worth it. I don't think that's interesting. I think those directors are fanboys, and I imagine you can tell watching the movie because
Yeah.
they're probably just too scared to do anything with it. And I understand that by experimenting and trying to be innovative, there's a chance you're going to go to a really dumb place like some of the movies you just mentioned. But honestly, that would be more worthwhile and interesting to me than just doing the same thing I've seen four times from directors, and no offense to them, but that don't have the talent or the experience Craven had.
Yeah.
But whatever, I hope people liked it. We're
I
gonna
think
get 10 more.
there's definitely, there's more coming, dude. But not egregious, not blowing your hair back for me. It's middle of the road. I wouldn't go see it in theaters, but watch it. I mean, it's not bad. So
Yeah. So the last thing I had for news, if you listen to the last episode, we sort of did a upcoming movies thing, and one of the movies we talked about is this thing called X, and we actually just got a trailer for that, it is a movie about this group of people that are making an adult film, and the trailer actually shows us what the plot is. They rent a house on this sort of farmland to use to shoot their porn film. And the people that own the land is this old couple, these farmers, a man and a woman, and it's something is wrong with them, like particularly the wife. Like there's something going on. Again, I think it's an A24 thing, so they're keeping it kind of vague in terms of what's going on. But it looks really interesting and really fun.
I'll have to check it out. The last trailer I watched was, I know that's been out for a bit, but I finally watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one, the trailer.
There's a trailer for that?
I did a trailer review, and I was so mad. Like I watched it live on my YouTube. I was like, oh, it'll be so cool, like Texas Chainsaw trailer. It was the worst trailer. It was so dumb. It offered nothing for the movie, nothing, and it was disappointing.
I'm gonna have to watch that later because I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, I guess I broke some news because I didn't know either. And then I looked at the time frame. I think it came out like a month ago or something.
Is
from
it
the
this one media channel?
I believe so. I believe that's who it was. Let me
It says
look.
Texas Chainsaw 2022. That's interesting.
Uh, yes, One
Right
Media.
under it is a video that's how Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 should have looked, and it's straight up the X trailer.
I see it right now. I just found it on my phone. Um, yeah. So that trailer, I watched it. It was so disappointing. It gave me no. I'm gonna see the movie, but it gave me no hope or desire at all.
It's I don't know, maybe Netflix is just being weird, but the fact that we're getting such little push for it makes me think that it's really bad and they're just gonna fart it out
That's what I
and
feel
like
like, dude.
hope people just ignore it because like that thing is out in like a couple weeks.
Yeah, like when you get off this and you watch the trailer, you're gonna be like, that was so lackluster for what you would think would
Yeah,
be
we
a
have
big
less than a
release.
month. It's out the 18th.
Yeah.
It's like 20 days or so.
So I
And they're
guess
just
that's
not pushing it at all.
no, not at all, which is crazy. So maybe it's just a pile of shit. I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird. But Netflix is weird sometimes, but I don't know, this just feels odd that they
It,
wouldn't be
it
pushing this.
yeah. So I mean, there's no telling. That's the most up and down franchise. When I was talking about Scream with consistency, Texas Chainsaw might be the exact opposite, where there is a no consistency.
I mean, they're pretty consistently bad.
That's fair. They're consistently not very good, but the styles and the themes, dude, that's just every single one of them is different.
Hmm.
Good lord.
I mean, because what can you really do with that?
Yeah, yeah. Pick a lane. At least Next Generation was like, let's get the Illuminati in this. Like, fuck
You
it,
know what? Screw it.
dude.
We don't have to try anymore.
I'm doing. I'm starting a review series, on Texas Chainsaw on my YouTube, and I'm about to have to go rewatch that, and I'm
Uh,
kind of excited.
you got to
I
get the what is it? The collector's
the
edition?
yeah the steelbook
Is it a different
edition. Yeah.
cut?
Uh,
Or
they have a
is there just a commentary?
there's a
Is that what
commentary,
we were interested
dude.
in?
I found it. I guess I didn't send it to you. They have a full length documentary on the filming of this movie, like
I
interviews
actually
with
would be really interested in that.
dude. It's not bad. Like everyone seems like they're having the funnest time. Like everything's going good.
It looks like a movie that would be really fun to make.
Oh,
That
I'm
doesn't mean
sure.
it's any good, but like, of course, Matthew McConaughey is having fun. I can tell just watching the thing that he's goofing around and having a good time.
Yeah, they so the cast seems to be having fun, but it's
And
just
they're
like
all
a
young and making a movie.
yeah, and
It
they're
was just
all
like
that's all
cool.
their first movies for a lot of them. And
Yeah.
but the director was like so just kind of pretentious with how he talks about
Hmm.
it, and you're like, dude, with some 2020 vision, you're gonna look back on this and be like, well, you're kind of an asshole. This movie is
I love documentaries about bad movies where the people making them don't know they're bad.
yeah,
It's so funny every time. There's one for Howard the Duck where like they don't know what movie they made. Like they just don't
yeah,
know. I would it would sort of be like whenever Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley talk about Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, they talk about that it is this absolute disaster that was just a nightmare to make. And but imagine if it was the exact same movie, but every time they talked about it, they were like, "That was amazing. We're really proud of that," and would like wax poetically about the themes of it. And you'd be like, "What movie do you think you made?"
what are you watching? Because give us that cut. Oh shit, that's funny. Yeah, they made a whole documentary on the filming of, and it's not like in depth, professional documentary, but it's
Sure,
just
just behind the
1990s
scenes kind of thing.
handheld
Yeah.
behind the scenes. Yeah, and dude, I've had a good time with watching those. Like Rob Zombie was the one who got me into it the most when he did
Oh
the Halloween ones.
yeah.
They were so in
Oh
depth, man.
man. It was like he didn't do one for the second one, unfortunately, because I think that was such a bad experience that he was just over it and just done. And I just read that Taking Shape book, and Bro did not have a good time making that second one. But that the one he did for the first one, and he did one for Devil's Rejects too, is like 4 hours,
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
it goes through every single piece of making
Hmm.
it. It's so
Yeah,
good.
and I think Peter Jackson did something similar for the Lord of the Rings movies,
Damn, I don't even
where
like
it's
those
this.
movies, but I bet that'd be interesting.
Yeah, and it's the same thing where it's just everything that they could possibly go through.
Damn. Yeah, if you're a horror fan and you like those movies, dude, go and you like enjoy the intricacies of what makes movies, go watch the Rob Zombie behind the
I
scenes for
think even
the
if you
movie.
just are interested in filmmaking,
Yeah, in
like it's
general.
like even if you don't like what Rob Zombie did with Halloween, I think it's interesting.
Because it goes from them finding locations, doing
Hmm.
storyboards, all the
Yeah,
way through all of it.
casting,
Yeah,
just every piece they possibly can.
it's very insightful to how
And it
much
sucks
actually
because
goes in.
they don't really do that kind of stuff anymore. Because special
Yeah,
features have sort of gone away. Just I guess the rise of streaming and the very sad fall of physical media. It's just not a thing. Like the recent Star Wars movies all had feature length documentaries for each of the films that they made, but that's it. Like,
yeah. I was always a dork as a kid. I always watched commentaries after the film. Like I loved
mm-hmm.
hearing
And special
commentaries.
features.
Yeah.
No, my parents were kids, or my mom, I should say, would sometimes get a little flustered because back then they would have two different versions of the movie out. One that was just one disc that was just the movie, right? And then there'd be your two disc version with all your special features and stuff. That was obviously a little more money. She was always like, "Why can't I just buy this version? That's cheaper." I'm like, well, that doesn't have this.
Yeah, I feel that. Um,
Uh, but that's the last bit of news I had.
as
Plus
far
a very long tangent.
we went kind of off. Um, thanks, Next Generation. I don't have any news other than that trailer. As far as I guess upcoming, I'm just reviewing the Texas Chainsaw series leading up to that film, which I'm unfortunately not looking forward to.
Uh,
And on my YouTube, and yeah, that's all I got going on in the horror world.
yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. Let us know if you liked this idea or this episode, and we can maybe do another one sometimes. I think it's kind of an interesting sort of game, I guess. Be sure, because I guess this is going up on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow me, Sean Blumenshine, on YouTube and Instagram. Follow Scott, Partial Artist, on YouTube and Instagram. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.